Welcome to Mindful Musings, where you're invited to join in mindful reflections that encourage and deepen connections with self and others. Help build a culture of caring, create a life of purpose, and face challenging transitions in an atmosphere of unity. Today, we are using the Virtues Reflection cards with permission from virtuesmatter.com. A live link is provided in the description box below this video for information on purchasing the downloadable phone app and/or a physical deck of cards. We're deeply present to others with compassion and accuracy, helping them to discern their own clarity. We go the extra mile to put ourselves in another's shoes in order to forgive. We treasure knowledge and use our minds as tools to explore what is real and true. We cherish the ability to see the whole picture. Did you want to read the back of the card, Barbara?
I don't have it, Lynda.
Okay. If one is the master of one thing, if one is master of one thing and understands one thing well, one has at the same time insight into and understanding of many things. Vincent van Gogh. The practice of understanding. I reflect on the meaning of ideas. I have empathy for others' feelings. I am mindful of meaning. I am a discerning listener. I call on empathy in order to forgive. I value knowledge and perceptiveness. I am thankful for the gift of understanding. It enlightens my viewpoint. So how is understanding resonating with you today, Barbara?
It's one of my favorites, I have to say. I love the drip. It's the Virtues Alive icon to me. That's, when we created that drip look. But considering all of what we talked about before we did this Virtues pick, we were talking about just understanding the journey of where we're at, understanding each other and our differences and how we can still work together and it's all part of what is important to be here. It's not anybody being right or anybody being wrong or somebody's idea being better or worse. It's this pool of openness almost to appreciate all. And so that's, it sums up what we were talking about. The divine feminine and masculine, the unity, the balance, the rise, that's happening in the world right now, and how we're on the cusp of all of it with our particular viewpoint. And in my opinion, such a clear understanding of what it means and what it takes to be balanced and in a soulful way. So it doesn't mean we're experts at it. It doesn't mean that we don't get hung up or knocked off track when something happens, but we understand. And awareness is the first part of any change. And so here we are. So Yeah, it's really awesome. Did we set an intention?
Nope.
No, we just, yeah. So yeah, it's really perfect in terms of what we've been diving into.
Thank you. I hear that real appreciation, joyfulness at the perfection of this being, this matching, this virtue matching so much the spirit of our earlier conversations.
Mm.
Yeah. And just where we're at in our process and what it is we want to create together, what our intention is to create together. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. How does it speak to you?
Well, it's that first line. It's having clear insight into ideas and feelings. So again, it's that integration of ideas and feelings so that we can comprehend the full truth, because it's not just the ideas, it's not just the rational mind, and it's not just the emotional, right? It's not just the masculine or just the feminine. And as you were sharing, I all of a sudden started to think, oh, this whole movement now about people saying that they're non-binary, that they refuse to identify as one gender or another, that they want to be seen as whole.
Mm-hmm.
So again, now that's really pushing people's, bending our capacity to understand humanity, you know. So that's it's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And being mindful of what is most important. And that to me is recognizing, having clear insight that into both the ideas and the feelings. That it's not one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Most important. So left brain, right brain, masculine, feminine, however you want to, you know, we tend to do the dichotomy thing, but to have that unity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that clarity that comes when we have it. Yeah. Yep. So that's how it's speaking to me today. So, and what a beautiful thing to be able to do that. And that the quote from Van Gogh is, if you know, you master one thing and understand that one thing well, then you then have the insight into it and understanding of many things. And that's, you know, that how we use different analogies and different metaphors. But basically, it's the same message underneath. So, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Lynda, I hear your knowledge and perceptiveness and the wisdom to discern the difference between the two. I love what you picked up on around the binary and in the world and what's happening in terms of the mindset. Mindfulness matters, and the mastery of mindfulness, as we know, is about developing the unity within ourselves.
Yeah. And how that whole, well, I'm non-binary. I don't want to be identified, you know, in a binary way, and how it's so related to in our minds, right? We're so used to separating.
Mm-hmm.
on our driver's license in Ontario, I found out today in the code, where they do the last 6 digits,
Yeah.
birth year,
Yeah.
the day you were born, and the month, or vice versa. It might be the month and then the day you're born. But they stick a 5 in there for females, or a 0 for men, for males.
Mm.
So we're so used to, it's right into our identification system.
And the first letter, the first digit is a letter that is the first letter of your last name.
Yeah. So what do they do? How can they cope when people refuse to fit into these little boxes that we've come to use to categorize and sort and separate and keep track of stuff for people and identify people, and it's and how often it's mixed up with not just genderizing people, but how then that gets all pushed into sexualizing and
Oh, such judgment.
and moralizing. So, we start with something very simple like supposed gender, and oh, well, we've only got 2. Well, actually, no, there's more than 2, but no, wait, we'll only deal with 2. And then
making it wrong to not fit in those categories.
Exactly. And then, because then it complicates our whole image of the whole sexual thing, how we can make sex right. And then it's like, oh, well, and of course, there's different rules for the different sexes of what's right and allowed and what's not right and allowed. And it's like, wow, we really do complicate things to what? To supposedly make life easier or more straightforward? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I think they actually tried to simplify things by stripping all the options away and just, you're either male or you're female. And now I agree with you. I think people are probably just like shaking their heads, not being able to comprehend the independence that's empowering people to want to detach from identifying at all.
Yeah, and we went through that in my generation with the whole idea of whether you had to be Mrs. So-and-so or whether you had to take your husband's name, right?
Yeah. Remember in the days before Ms.? Remember when Ms. first came on the scene?
Oh, exactly.
People balked at that. They were just...
And I remember saying to people, because of my crazy sense of humor and playing with words, right? So I'd be talking to some government person and or some form-filling person, and they'd say, well, is that Miss or Mrs.? And I'd say, no, it's Ms. Ms. the boat.
Miss the boat.
But I was married, but I'd say Ms. the boat. I'm not Miss or Mrs.
So you were married and you were still identifying as Ms.
I wanted to be Ms. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it just, I'm not sure where the world's going in that regard, because I remember when I was a child reading or watching something, and it was all about the future and how there was no gender. And I think they were probably aliens in suits. Like there was no at all, like females looked exactly like the males. There was no even emotion in terms of attraction. Like there was none of that. And I remember thinking, what a weird world that would be.
I remember when, and in the 60s, the unisex clothing all came out too, right?
I don't remember that. No, that was, I was born in 61, so yeah, I wouldn't have been aware of unisex clothing really.
Yeah, it was the late 60s. Yeah, so you would
where in Canada, in the US?
Oh yeah, but Europe? Yeah, it was the hippie era and stuff, and we started to get into unisex clothing so that girls could wear jeans and turtlenecks.
Okay.
And vests.
Yeah, that came
cowboy
before
boots.
the 60s though, right? didn't women start wearing jeans like in the wars?
Oh yeah, but it wasn't fashionable. This became the fashion. And there was a movement, a bit of it back in the 1920s too, I think,
It would be interesting.
where George Sand's era and stuff like that. But you know, it's come in waves over time where the clothing thing issue and stuff. So it's really interesting.
The only person I remember wearing unisex clothing is David Bowie,
Yeah.
but I mean nobody was like David Bowie, so
Yeah.
he was in a category all to himself.
Thank you for joining us in Mindful Musings today. We always welcome courteous and respectful feedback in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed spending time with us, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're interested in joining us online, click the link to visit our site, synergyetc.ca.